This is 3.2 principal inverse trig value. What I do want to remind you of is in class we talked about the restrictions. So we've got two categories here. We've got 90 to negative 90 here, where this is your positive answers and your negative. And the functions that fall into this are sine and its reciprocal, cosecant, and tangent. And then the second one falls between 0 and 180, where we have positive values here and negative here. And what falls into this is cosine and its reciprocal secant and cotangent. Okay, so in order to find the exact principal value in radians without your calculator, the first thing that we need to think about is arc sine. Anytime you see arc, what you're going to be looking for is an angle. Okay, so we're looking for angles this whole time. All right, so arc sine means opposite over hypotenuse, and we have root 3 over 2. So arc sine of root 3 over 2, I'm going to draw this. Now, first of all, I know arc sine is this side between 90 and negative 90. Since it's positive, I'm going to draw it in the first quadrant. And it's opposite root 3 over hypotenuse, which is 2. And this is going to be a 1 here, so that means this is a 60-degree angle right here. Okay, because this is 60 degrees, I know that's 60 degrees because that's opposite of 30. Okay, now what I need to do is go ahead and change this back to radians, and you should know this by now, and if you don't, you can go ahead and change it to radians by multiplying by pi over 180. So if I change this back to radians, this is going to be pi over 3. And that's my answer. I found an angle. Okay, now going to number 2. Arc sine of negative 1/2. Remember, it's your restricted range. Sine is on the side. Your negative is down here in the fourth quadrant. Draw your triangle in the fourth quadrant. Opposite over hypotenuse. This is going to be 1 over 2. Your negative will never be on your hypotenuse. This is going to be a root 3 right here. Because I'm opposite of negative 1, this is going to be a negative 30 degrees. That gives me x equals negative 30. Now change it back to radians. So x is going to be negative pi over 6. And again, if you don't know how to go back to radians, you need to multiply by pi over 180. Okay, here. Some of you may not remember what root 2 over 2 is equivalent to. So let me kind of backtrack here. If you have 1 over root 2, in order to rationalize that, you have to multiply by root 2 over root 2. That gives you root 2 over 2. And that's what we have here. So this right here, if you need to backtrack to that, that's really 1 over root 2. And that's what I'm going to use to set up my triangle. Okay, arc cosine, that's adjacent over hypotenuse. Cosine, my arc cosine is on top. And because it's positive, it's in the first quadrant. So that's where I'm going to draw this picture. My adjacent side is 1. My hypotenuse is root 2. So this is going to be a 45 degree triangle. So this is x equals 45. You change it back to radians. That's pi over 4. And again, if you don't know how to do that, multiply by pi over 180. Okay, looking at number 4. Cosine. Again, remember, cosine is on top. This is positive and this is negative. You can just look at the top of your paper. So I'm going to draw this in the second quadrant. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So my adjacent side is root 3. Hypotenuse is 2. And I need a negative, so hypotenuse is never negative. This is going to be 1. So this is going to be 30. Now remember, this is your reference angle, so I need to know what gave me 30. So really, x is equal to 150 degrees. Okay, or if you like to go ahead and think of this in radians, this is pi over, sorry, that's not pi over 3, that's pi over 6. So what gave me this? That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So x is equal to 5 pi over 6. So 150 is 5 pi over 6. Okay, arctan. Tangent is the side where this is positive and this is negative. Again, this is like number 3, where I had root 2 over 2. So this is the same thing as saying 1 over root 3. This is the unsimplified version. So this is what I'm going to work with. Since tangent is positive, I'm going to go in the first quadrant and build my triangle. This is opposite over adjacent. So opposite side is 1, adjacent is 3. So it looks like this is 2. If you've noticed, every triangle is either going to be 30, 60, 90, or a 45. Okay, so this is 30. So if your reference angle is 30, that's all I need to do and change it to radians, so that's pi over 6. Okay, arctan again is in the first and the fourth, and it's negative, so I'm going to build it in the fourth quadrant. Again, opposite over adjacent. I don't have an adjacent, so I'm going to put it over 1. So this is opposite over adjacent. And it looks like my negative needs to fall down here. So this is 2. So what is across from this negative angle should be 60, and it will be a negative 60 degrees. So my reference angle is negative 60 degrees, or if I change it to radians, that should be negative pi over 3. Okay, sine of 0. So 0 degrees is right here, and this ordered pair is 1, 0. So remember, this is cosine and this is sine, so this is where I got sine of 0. So basically what you're looking for is what angle gave me 0. So what angle gave you 0? 0. Okay, arc cotangent. Cotangent, remember, is on the top, where this is positive and this is negative. And cotangent is going to be adjacent over opposite. So we need to build it in this second quadrant. So adjacent is going to be root 3. Opposite is going to be 1. So this is 2. We do need a negative, so it looks like it's going to be on this one right here. Okay, if you can't figure out where to put the negative, remember you can do all students take calculus. This is the same thing that I'm looking at, where this is students, so sine is the only one that's positive. Okay, so adjacent over opposite. This is a 30-degree angle. Remember, that's pi over 6. So what gave me this angle, so what's left over is 150. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this should be 5 pi over 6. Okay, for cosecant, remember cosecant is ho, and this would be over 1. So cosecant is on the side because it's the reciprocal of sine. This is positive and this is negative. So we need to build it in the fourth quadrant. So hypotenuse and opposite. Remember, hypotenuse is never negative, so this is negative. And looks like, oh, that's not 1. This is going to be a 1. So this is a 45-degree triangle. And because this is opposite of negative 1, this is going to be a negative 45. So changing it to radians, this is going to be negative pi over 4. Okay, number 10, arc cosecant. This is hypotenuse over adjacent. Arc cosecant is going to be on the top because that's the reciprocal of cosine, where this is positive and this is negative. Put this over 1. Let's build it in the second quadrant. Hypotenuse is 2. Adjacent is 1. So this is root 3. This side, negative 1, I'd have a negative on the 1. So this is 60. Okay, and that's pi over 3. So what gave me the 60 degrees, so this would be not 60 degrees, it would be 2 pi over 3. Okay, tangent of -1 is opposite over adjacent. And let's see, tangent is going to be the side, positive and negative down here. So let's build it in the fourth quadrant. So opposite over adjacent. So this is root 2. This is not let's see, here's a -1. So we've got a -45. Some of y'all should be catching on to these really quick here. So it looks like my radians is -pi over 4. Okay, we've got arc cosine. That is adjacent over hypotenuse. And cosine, remember, is on top where this is positive and this is negative. If we have this negative root 2 over 2, remember unsimplified is 1 over root 2, we still have a negative. Okay, let's see where this falls. We've got in the second quadrant, we've got adjacent over hypotenuse. This has to be negative, and we have a 1 here. This is going to be 45. All right, I want to know what gives me 45 degrees. If this is split into half, and this is pi over 4. This would be 1 pi over 4, 2, and 3. So it looks like x is going to be 3 pi over 4. Okay, on the bottom here, all it's saying is if the ratio of sides is positive, then the answer is the reference angle. If the ratio of sides is negative, for sine, tangent, or cosecant, the answer is the negative reference angle. And if the ratio of sides is negative for cosine, secant, or cotangent, the answer is 180 or pi minus the reference angle. And again, this is not something you have to memorize. It's just something that we're doing up here in the triangle. Okay, bring your questions to class.